Welcome back everybody to this video on a further extension of our understanding of the skeletal system. In this module, we're going to be looking at learning objective 1.1.2. And this is to distinguish between the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton in terms of function. So in our previous video, we looked at the axial and appendicular skeletons in terms of anatomy. And what we found about the axial skeleton was that it includes components such as the skull, the sternum, the ribs, and the vertebral column. The appendicular skeleton included everything else from our shoulders, our arms, our hips, as well as our legs. And so in this video, we're more interested in looking at the different functions of these two. And so we're going to consider the anatomical functions of attachment, protection, movement, and support. And I'll talk about what all of these mean in a tiny bit. In addition to that, we're also interested in looking at learning objective 1.1.3, which is to state the 4 types of bones. And these include long bones, short bones, flat bones, and irregular bones. So let's dive right in. So when we're looking at the axial skeleton, we're looking at 4 main functions. We're looking at protection of vital body organs. So if you really think about the skull, what is it protecting? Well, it's protecting the brain. It's protecting everything within that skull area too. So we're looking at the protection of our nasal system, our mouth, our eyes. We're looking at protection of our arteries and nerves running into our brains too. The axial skeleton is an attachment point for muscles. And so muscles, we're looking at our whole body, which really is just filled with muscle. And if you think about our sternum as an example, our sternum will have some muscles attaching to it and running out from it. If we're looking at our ribs, we also have a number of muscles running out from it. And that might include, for example, just to throw out a few names, like the serratus anterior muscle. The axial skeleton, if we think about our vertebral column, is to support, to maintain posture. So support is another function of our axial skeleton, and it's all about maintaining good posture to resist against the effects of gravity. The axial skeleton is also a reservoir for minerals. And so in this instance, we're just talking about bones in general, but all bones contain some level of calcium and phosphorus, and it's really used to store these components to our body that are essential to a lot of our bodily functions. So that's our axial skeleton: to protect, to attach, to support, and to provide a mineral reservoir. If we're looking at the appendicular skeleton, we're more concerned about movement. And so the predominant function of the appendicular skeleton is what we call mobility. And so our dominant function, movement. Movement through the attachment of muscle tendons to long bones. So with each of our bones here, by themselves, they can't move. When we have muscle tendons attaching to them, our muscles can shorten, and that will pull our bones towards us or push it away from us, essentially allowing mobility. So that's the interaction between muscle and bone. And with the assistance of nerves, which help really give that command, we're able to move through our appendicular skeleton, and that includes our limbs, our shoulders, our hips. The appendicular skeleton is involved in the formation of red and white blood cells. It serves as a storage for energy. For example, it stores lipids in the yellow bone marrow, which is when we break down the structure of our bones, we'll see where the yellow bone marrow sits. And all you really need to know here is that the bone can be used to store lipids, or what we call fats. And again, as with the axial skeleton, the appendicular skeleton, because it's all made of the same material, is a mineral reservoir for calcium and phosphorus. So then looking at our next learning objective, we're going to look at the 4 types of bones. We first have long bones. And so these are bones that are longer than they are wide, and they're essential for movement. When we're looking at long bones, we're looking at, for example, our humerus or radius and ulna, right? And these are bones that are longer than they are wide and they allow movement. Then we have short bones. So our second type of bone is called the short bone, and they are small and compact, but they provide strength for intricate movement. So in this case, we're looking at our wrist, but our wrist, this area is made up of a number of carpal bones. And so these are examples of short bones because they tend to be more cubed, and they're very small and compact, but they're very strong. We then have flat bones, and so these tend to have a curved surface. They protect organs and they allow for muscle attachment. And an example of a flat bone would be, for example, the sternum. That's protective. Finally, we have irregular bones, and so this describes all other bones of varied sizes, shapes, and surface area. If we look at the vertebral column, each vertebrae really kind of has a different shape depending on where it's situated at. So C1 or cervical vertebrae 1 will be very, very different to C7, cervical vertebrae 7. And so will it be different to, for example, lumbar vertebrae 2. And so these are what we call irregular bones, and they serve all types of functions. So that concludes this video looking at our learning objective of distinguishing between the function of the axial and appendicular skeletons, as well as stating the 4 types of bones. I hope you learned something today, and take care. See you all soon. Bye.